Welcome to the Bible Mindset. Powerful, motivational, biblical sermon by Tony Evans. Let me make something crystal clear to you today. You are not ordinary. You were never designed to blend in, to shrink back, or to seek validation from the crowd. You carry an anointing, a divine appointment over your life. And that anointing will never fit into the expectations of people who are committed to average. The moment God's hand was placed on you, you became a disruption. You became a holy irritation to systems built on pride, comfort zones, insecurity, and control. That's why they whisper. That's why they walk away. That's why your presence makes them shift in their seat. You don't have to do anything but exist in the authority God gave you, and hell starts trembling and insecure people start talking. You didn't stumble into this anointing. You didn't trip into greatness by accident. You didn't get here because someone opened a back door and let you slide in. No. You were chosen, handpicked by God himself for a divine assignment. Long before you were ever misunderstood, mistreated, or underestimated by man, you were already marked by heaven. That oil on your life, the calling that won't let you settle, the fire that keeps pushing you forward, that didn't come from culture. That didn't come from applause. That didn't come from popularity. That came from the throne room of God. Let that sink in. You don't need another confirmation from people who are too distracted by comfort to recognize calling. What rests on you wasn't voted in, and it can't be voted out. Your anointing is not up for debate. You don't have to explain it, dilute it, or disguise it to be accepted by the crowd. That oil was assigned to you for a reason. And that reason is bigger than their approval. Some people can't handle what you carry because it confronts what they've been avoiding. Some rooms resist you. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because your obedience makes the disobedient uncomfortable. You carry a standard that stirs conviction. You carry a presence that exposes complacency. Let me tell you, this anointing you walk with is disruptive by nature. It breaks chains. It opens eyes. It changes the climate. You're not just another voice in the crowd. You're a divine interruption. You're not here to echo what's already been said. You're here to shift the atmosphere and shake foundations that are built on sand. There's something on you that makes darkness nervous. There's a grace on you that draws both admiration and attack. There's a weight to your existence, and people can sense it even when you try to hide it. And this is why some people have distanced themselves. This is why some environments grew tight when you showed up. This is why some leaders, friends, even family members started switching up. It's not your confidence, it's your calling. It's not your tone, it's your truth. The Spirit of God on your life makes people feel the absence of the Spirit in theirs. And instead of rising to the level God is calling them to, they choose to retreat, resist, and sometimes reject. But understand this, the oil doesn't come without friction. The anointing comes with isolation, tension, and conflict. But it also comes with power, authority, and favor. So when the enemy starts throwing shade, when people start acting funny, when doors start closing and silence grows louder, don't second guess what's on your life. That resistance is just a reminder. You are walking in something sacred. You are moving with a mantle. You are navigating with a divine appointment that cannot be stolen, silenced, or stopped. And the moment you stop trying to fit the calling into containers that weren't built to hold it, you'll see just how powerful that oil really is. The hand of God is not a theory in your life. It's a fact. You are evidence that heaven still touches earth. You are proof that obedience still carries weight. You are the reminder that when God anoints someone, they don't need a crowd, they need a command. Heaven already signed off on your assignment. You're not waiting to be approved, you've already been appointed. You're not waiting to be seen, you've already been sent. They're not rejecting you, they're reacting to what's on you. When the anointing rests on your life, It provokes responses that have nothing to do with your personality and everything to do with your presence. You walk in the room and suddenly the air shifts. People go quiet, conversations get awkward, smiles become strained, and you start wondering, what did I do? But the truth is you didn't do anything. You just showed up carrying something they weren't ready to face. This is where many people get confused. They think being anointed means everyone will celebrate them, doors will open without resistance, and relationships will grow deeper. But the reality is, the anointing doesn't just attract favor, it reveals fear in others. You remind them of what they were supposed to pursue. You trigger what they buried. You reflect the obedience they walked away from. It's not about you personally. It's about what you represent spiritually. And whether they admit it or not, your presence reminds them of their potential. And that reminder feels like judgment when their life is still under negotiation. Some of the people who left weren't walking away from you. They were running from the pressure of accountability your life brings. You didn't come to condemn them. You didn't criticize them. You didn't even speak a word. But the oil you carry whispers something loud. There's more than this. You were made for more than this. You can't settle here. And when people have made peace with their chains, freedom feels like an insult. Your walk makes their excuses feel exposed. Your discipline makes their compromise feel convicted. And instead of rising to your level, they retreat to their comfort. They don't hate you. They fear the confrontation your presence brings. Your consistency shatters the illusion they've created. Your faith unmasks their doubt. Your movement makes their stagnation scream. That's why the very ones who used to cheer for you are now silent when you win. That's why the ones who once called you brother, sister, family now act like you're a threat. Because somewhere along the way they realized you weren't just chasing purpose, you became a walking manifestation of what obedience can do. And that realization cut deep. There's a spiritual principle at play here. When God elevates you, He exposes everything that was never truly aligned with you. The higher you go, the more clearly you see who can handle your calling. Not everyone is equipped to steward your transformation. Some people were only comfortable with you when you were unsure, broken, and questioning yourself. But now that you're standing tall, moving in power, and refusing to compromise, they feel exposed. Not because you're trying to make them feel small, but because your growth reminds them they stopped growing. So don't mistake their silence for your failure. Don't let their distance make you question your direction. If anything, it's proof you're walking in your assignment. The oil is expensive, and not everyone is willing to pay that price. You paid it with tears, with late nights, with heartbreak, with isolation, with spiritual warfare. So when people exit without explanation, take it as a silent salute. They recognize the glory before they had the language for it. They saw the light and it burned their comfort. And instead of facing that fire, they backed away, not from you, but from the conviction your anointing carries. This is the season where God is showing you the difference between who claps for your image and who can carry your calling. He's revealing who admired you from a distance but can't handle you up close. Because up close, you're not just talented, you're transformed. Up close, you're not just impressive, you're impactful. And impact makes the insecure uncomfortable. You don't have to open your mouth to make people uncomfortable. Your life is already speaking volumes. There's something about you that disturbs the atmosphere before you even say a word. And it's not arrogance, it's not pride. It's the undeniable evidence of God's hand on your life. You're not trying to compete. You're not trying to impress. You're just trying to be obedient. And somehow that alone becomes offensive to people who have grown used to wearing masks. Your very existence is a mirror, and mirrors don't lie. When you walk in authenticity, when you carry purity in your intentions, when you've chosen surrender over show, you reflect back to people a version of themselves they've avoided. They've buried it. They've silenced it. They've ignored the conviction. But when you come in, your very presence drags that hidden version of them back into the light. And that reflection doesn't feel good when someone has been surviving off pretense. There's a reason the room grows quiet when you show up. There's a reason conversations suddenly change or people get busy. The moment you arrive, you're not toxic, you're truthful. You're not judgmental, you're anointed. And that anointing doesn't need to shout to confront. It speaks through your decisions. It speaks through your consistency. It speaks through your peace. It speaks through your refusal to settle, to gossip, to fake it. And that kind of integrity makes people who are living on counterfeit feel cornered. You walk in with light and darkness gets irritated. Because darkness can be loud, but light never needs to yell. Light just shows up and exposes. And when your lifestyle shines with clarity, it causes those who are hiding in shadows to flinch. They may smile in your face, but their spirit is wrestling with something they haven't addressed. You didn't say anything, but your discipline challenged their laziness. You didn't call them out, but your joy made their bitterness feel unnecessary. You didn't attack them, but your growth exposed their complacence. And the truth is, some people preferred you when you were still unsure. They were more comfortable with you when you were second-guessing yourself, begging for affirmation, looking for belonging. But now that you've found your rhythm in God, now that you've embraced the mantle, the identity, the fire, you've become a reminder of everything they've neglected. You walk in faith while they're still rationalizing fear. You speak purpose while they're still making excuses. You're living surrendered while they're still controlling outcomes. And that reflection, it's not easy to fake, but that's the power of the anointing. It doesn't just perform, it reveals. It doesn't just bless, it confronts. And when you carry it with humility, when you don't even try to prove yourself, it becomes even more powerful. You walk in rooms and they feel the difference. Not because you're better, but because you're aligned. And alignment carries weight, spiritual weight, the kind that can't be faked, the kind that makes shallow conversations feel empty, the kind that makes surface level connections fall apart, the kind that makes broken foundations tremble just by your presence. You're not better than anyone, you're just in obedience. And obedience radiates, it glows, it testifies. And that testimony confronts people who have grown numb to their own. The reason they pull back isn't always because of jealousy. Sometimes it's because they see what they could have been had they not stopped, had they not settled, had they not silenced the voice of God in their own lives. And you, whether you realize it or not, have become a mirror they don't want to face. You were never meant to blend in. You were never meant to walk in alignment with a crowd that moves in circles. From the beginning, you were wired differently, built for disruption, marked for distinction, and designed for a higher standard. That stirring you feel, that constant friction when you try to follow the patterns others are comfortable with, is not a sign that you're broken. It's confirmation that you were built to stand out. And the more you try to fit in, the more you'll feel out of place. Because your spirit was not created to conform, it was created to shift the climate around you. Some of you are exhausted. Not because you're out of strength, but because you're using all your energy to shrink yourself into spaces you've outgrown. You're bending your voice, altering your values, watering down your convictions, and dimming your light just to be accepted by people who secretly admire your fire, but are too insecure to stand next to it. You weren't called to fit their mold. You weren't meant to be a copy of what's popular. You were forged by fire, refined in rejection, elevated through isolation. That's not the resume of someone ordinary. That's the evidence of someone set apart. The anointing on your life comes with a distinction. And distinction often feels like isolation. Because when God separates you for his purpose, he won't let you blend in with people who are committed to staying average. There's a holy misfit in you, a divine discomfort that refuses to settle. You've tried to mute your voice in conversations where truth was needed. You've tried to dull your discernment just to keep the peace. You've tried to carry the weight of authenticity in rooms built on performance. And every time something in your soul whispers, this isn't it, this isn't you. Now, let that be your reminder. The crowd can't carry what you carry. The oil on your life doesn't come with a consensus. Heaven never asked for a vote to approve your calling. The moment God set you apart, he made you a threat to comfort zones and casual Christianity. You're not the same, and that's not pride, it's purpose. Your difference isn't a flaw, it's your weapon. Your uniqueness isn't a liability, it's your assignment. Because what you carry isn't meant to entertain, it's meant to shift. You weren't born to be a background voice, you're a frontline force. There's a reason you feel resistance when you try to compromise. There's a reason shallow conversations drain you. There's a reason certain crowds now feel foreign. You've grown. You've stretched. You've surrendered. And surrender will always take you to places where comfort can't go. You can't force your fire into a box built for lukewarm. You can't house destiny inside the cage of conformity. Every time you try to make yourself smaller, more palatable, more normal, your spirit rebels. Because normal was never your portion. The more you embrace your distinction, the more power flows through you. Not performance, not perfection, just alignment, just obedience, just boldness to be exactly who God called you to be without apology. It's time to stop negotiating your identity for temporary belonging. It's time to stop dressing down your calling to make others feel comfortable. You weren't made to be liked, you are made to be light. And light doesn't ask for permission to shine. It simply enters and everything else has to adjust. You are that kind of presence, the kind that causes atmospheres to shift simply because you walk in alignment with heaven. When the anointing is on your life, you become a walking disruption to the atmosphere. You don't need a microphone, a platform, or a title to shake the ground. Your presence alone is powerful enough to stir things in the unseen realm. You carry something from heaven that unsettles what hell has built. You are not normal, and when you truly begin to walk in the anointing God has placed on you, you stop blending into darkness and start disturbing it. Your anointing isn't cute, it's dangerous. It's not for decoration, it's for destruction of strongholds. You weren't given the Spirit of God to make people feel cozy. You were given power to pull down demonic systems, to interrupt cycles of generational bondage, to tear apart atmospheres that keep people bound in fear, lust, confusion, and insecurity. Your obedience isn't just for you, it's a divine earthquake shaking the places around you that others were too scared to touch. You don't even know the full extent of what you disturb because the moment you step in, spiritual resistance starts rising and hell gets nervous. That's why warfare intensifies around you. That's why some days you feel tension in the room and can't even explain why. That's why you can't settle into compromise, not because you're trying to be better than anyone, but because what's on your life was designed to be different. Your anointing doesn't tolerate what others accept. You don't have the luxury of staying quiet in the presence of injustice. You can't stay silent when God is calling you to be a mouthpiece. Because the fire in your bones is not for decoration, it's for divine disruption. When you show up, spirits that have gone unchallenged start getting agitated. That's why people either cling to you or distance themselves from you. They don't even realize why, but something in their spirit knows this person is carrying truth. This person is carrying authority. This person is not playing games. You're not just praying prayers, you're launching weapons. You're not just worshiping, you're releasing heaven into dry places. You're not just preaching, you're awakening destinies that hell tried to bury. You have become a living confrontation to every atmosphere that's been comfortable in chaos. That's why you feel resistance, because your spirit is wired to war. And not everyone around you was built for that kind of battle. Some people only want peace, even if it means being bound. But your anointing is confrontational, not with arrogance, not with pride, but with spiritual authority that says, this can't stay, this can't continue. This has to break. You're not fighting for attention, you're fighting for transformation. You're not stepping on toes, you're stepping into alignment. And when alignment happens, disruption is inevitable. Every assignment God gives you comes with a level of resistance, not because you're off track, but because you're a threat. You carry deliverance in your words. You carry healing in your touch. You carry clarity in your counsel. And darkness doesn't like that. In fact, it's terrified of it. People may think you're too much, too intense, too deep, too serious, but that's because they're used to shallow, surface-level Christianity. You don't play with the things of God. You walk with weight. You carry fire. You don't just sing songs, you stir heaven. You don't just walk into rooms, you shift dimensions. And it's not because you're trying to make an entrance. It's because your very existence is a divine invasion against the forces of darkness. You keep waiting for a green light from people who were never assigned to understand your lane. You keep hoping that one day they'll see the fire in you, affirm the vision in you, validate the oil on your life. But here's the truth. Your anointing doesn't need their validation. It requires your boldness. You don't need another compliment to move forward. You don't need another handshake to start the journey. The call on your life is already active, and heaven is waiting on your yes, not their applause. There is a boldness rising in you that can't be contained anymore. You've spent enough time wondering if you're too much, if you're out of line, if you should tone it down just to make others feel secure. But something in you is waking up. Something fiery, something holy, something unstoppable. And that's the anointing breaking through your hesitation. That's the weight of destiny refusing to sit quietly anymore. You were never meant to whisper what God told you to declare. You were never meant to tiptoe through doors. He already commanded you to walk through. You were meant to roar. You can't keep asking insecure people for permission to be powerful. You can't keep seeking approval from people who benefit from your silence. You can't keep placing your mantle in their hands hoping they'll honor it when they don't even understand it. They didn't fast for this. They didn't cry for this. They didn't break for this. They didn't bleed for this. You did. So, why are you still waiting for them to say it's your time? Heaven already announced it. You're not waiting on a release. You're waiting on courage. This is your moment to walk in the boldness your calling demands. That means you're going to have to move before you're understood. That means you're going to have to speak before it makes sense to everyone. That means you're going to have to lead when no one's clapping. That means you're going to have to create without a crowd. You have been waiting for confirmation from the very people who secretly hope you'll stay quiet because your rising makes their settling uncomfortable. Your boldness makes their compromise obvious. You don't need anyone to sign off on what God has already stamped. The anointing you carry is proof that heaven has already said yes. So now it's time for your yes to match God's. It's time to